Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 21 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're learning how to think like an engineer using the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee, poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons. And in this class, we will be using the Sunfounder Elite Explorer Kit. Now, hopefully most of you guys already have your gear, but if you don't, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon and you can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot easier if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's jump in and talk about what I am going to teach you today. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you about while loops in Arduino. And this is really going to be the homework assignment for the homework that I gave you in lesson number 20. So I should start by asking, were you successful? If you were successful, leave a comment down below. I am legend. Double chest bump. If you were not successful, leave a comment down below. I folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair. Well, anyway, I hope you got it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do this exercise and this homework to try to get you more familiar and really understanding the while loops. Now, we've learned that we can loop with the for loop, and then last week we talked a little bit about the while loop, and then today we'll actually do something with the while loop. And what the assignment was, the assignment was to set up your RGB LED and to blink it red, green, blue. Red, green, blue. But the number of times you blink it, you'll get that information from the user. That will be user input. And then you will have the red, green, blue, red, green, blue. You'll have that blink sequence, not in a for loop, but to do it with a while loop. Use the while loop to make sure that the Arduino blinks the LED the number of times specified by the user. Sound good? I hope it does. So let's get out of your way and have a sip of coffee. Yes. That is good coffee. Let's jump over to our overhead view. And guys, this is the circuit that we have had for the last couple of weeks. Notice that this is the RGB LED, and the way that I have it plugged in, this is the long leg. So the long leg, it's towards the bottom, and that would then make this the red leg. Again, that is the long leg, that is ground, and then this is the green leg, and this is the blue leg. So to hook this thing up, the first thing we need to do is get it grounded. And so this long leg, this second leg, in that same column as the long leg, I've got this short wire going to this ground rail. I make the ground rail a ground rail by taking this black wire and jumping over to a GND pin on the Arduino. And so now everything along this entire row, this entire bottom row or rightmost row is going to be a ground now. Okay, now I need 3 1000 ohm current limiting resistors, one for the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. And so we take that red pin and then we put it in series with the 1000 ohm resistor. The 1000 ohm resistor, notice, jumps over this trench, and that way the things over here are not connected to the things over here. This is the red channel. Then I take a red wire and I go over to squiggly wiggly pin 9, the squiggly wiggly pin 9, because we might decide that we want to control the brightness. And if we use one of those squiggly pins, we will be able to use PWM to set the brightness. Okay, go back and look at the earlier lessons if that doesn't make sense to you. Then this third pin is the green channel. We go through a 1000 ohm resistor to a green wire, which comes to squiggly pin 10. And then the last leg, the fourth leg, is the blue channel. Again, 1000 ohm resistor. We go to the blue LED and we go to the squiggly pin 11. So that's how we have this thing set up. And let's come in here and let's start coding. Okay, now what was your assignment again? What your assignment was to get input from the user how many times that he wants to blink. And if he says 3 times, then what your LED should go is red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue. 3 blink sequences. Okay, if he says 4, red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue, and then stop. Okay, so that was the homework assignment. And the homework assignment was to do it with while loops. Not a for loop, but to do it with a while loop. So that's what the homework assignment was. Let's go in and get this thing set up. First of all, I have 3 pins, so I need to set those pins up. They're going to be integers, and I have the red pin, and that was equal to pin 9. Don't forget the semicolon, int, and then we had the green pin, and that was set to pin 10. It was connected to pin 10, and then we have the blue pin, and we had connected that to pin 11 like that. Now, what else are we going to need to do? Well, we're going to need to have some delays in there. There's going to be a short delay between the red, the green, and the blue, and then there's going to be a long delay between the red, green, blue, and the next red, green, blue. So we're going to need an integer, and this will be delay S for delay short. Let's make that 150 milliseconds. That's pretty fast. And then let's go integer delay L for delay long, and this will be the delays between the blink, 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 blink. So you see there's 2 different types of delays in there. We'll make that a second, which would be 1000 milliseconds like that. Now we're going to need to interact with the serial monitor, so we need to define a baud rate. So I'm going to say int BR is equal to 115/200 like that. Okay. Now we're also going to, down there, we're going to need a counter as we're counting how many times it has blinked. So I'm going to say the letter I. And I am going to set that to the number 1. So the first time it's going to start out at the number 1. We've got it initialized there. Then we're going to get from the user how many times he wants to blink. So we're going to call that numBlink. We're not going to set that. We're just declaring it because the user will set the number of times that he or she wants to blink. Now we need to ask him to tell us, so we need a prompt, and that's going to be a string, and it's going to be my prompt, like that, my prompt, and then that is going to be how many blinks do you desire? Okay, like that. Close it, semicolon. Okay. And I like to check up here. Yeah, I got all my semicolons in. I've been a good boy. So now we'll come here, come up. And now if we're going to use that serial monitor, we're going to need to turn it on. So I'm going to do a serial.begin and what? 115 to, no. You use your variable, right? BR, and we set BR up there to 115,200. So we use the variable. Now we've got to do our pin mode. So I've got pin mode, which pin, red pin, and that is an output like that. Now I'm going to do a pin mode, which one? Green pin, and that is an output. Okay, and then I've got pin mode, and then I've got a blue pin, and that is an output, and then put in my semicolon. I am flying through this thing, and I'm putting my semicolons in. Maybe this will run. Okay, now we have got things set up. Now we need to come down to the void loop. Now in the void loop, the first thing we're going to need to know is how many blinks does the user want? So if I'm going to get input from the user, what 3 things am I going to have to do? Ask, wait, and read. ask him for what we need from him, and then wait for him to put it in, and then read it. So how do we ask? We do a serial.println, and then what are we going to print? We're going to print my prompt, which we already set up there. Now we've asked, now what do? We wait. How do we wait? We say while serial.available, open close, while that is equal 0. If serial available is 0, that means nothing has been put in. And so what do we want to do? We want to just sit and loop. Okay, so this is the opening curly of the while clause, and this is the close curly of the while clause. What do we want to do in the while clause? Absolutely nothing. We're just going to sit and loop, 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 waiting for data. When data's there, then we will drop out of that while loop and we will land squarely at this line of code. And what do we need to do here? Now we need to read what the user put in. We ask, we wait. We've done those two things. Now what do we need to do? We need to read. What are we going to read? The numBlink, and that is going to be equal to serial.readInt. No, you don't read an int, you parse an int. Hopefully you guys saw that. Parse int, open, close. So now we have numBlink. Okay, now we have numBlink. And what do we want to do now? Now we want to loop how many times? numBlink times. So what do? I say while, and while what? While my counter is I, right? While I is less than or equal to numBlink. While I is less than or equal to numBlink, what am I going to do? I'm going to keep looping between the open curly here and the closed curly. Everything in here I will do as many times as I loop. Okay, this curly closes the while clause. This curly closes the void loop. Okay, and so we're keeping our curly straight here. So now what do I put inside of this while? I put the things that I want to do each time, which is what? Blink, red, green, blue. Okay, red, green, blue. So what I just need to do is I need to blink red, I need to blink green, and I need to blink blue. And then each time through the while loop, I will do that. So how many times do I go red, green, blue, red, green, blue, red, green, blue? That's defined by the while loop. So what I've just got to do is get one good red, green, blue loop, one good red, green, blue blink inside of this while loop. And then the while loop will keep track of how many times you want to do that blink. So what are we going to do? We are going to do a digital write, and then where are we going to write? The red pen. And then what are we going to do? We're going to take it high because we're going to turn it red. Now what do we want to do with the other ones? Digital write, okay, and then green pen is going to be low, right? Because whose turn is it? It's Mr. Red Pen's turn. Green pen, wait your turn. Then I do a digital write, and then what? Blue pen, and then what? Low, like that. Okay, now this is kind of like the first. I've got red on, green off, blue off. Now what do I need to do? I need to delay, because I want to keep that on for you to see it. How long do I want to delay? What do we call that? Short delay, delay S. D-E-L-A-Y-S, like that. So now it's going to stay on. Red is going to stay on for delay S. Now what do I want to do? I want to turn everything off for delay S. So let's take these three lines of code. Let's copy them. Okay, I'm doing a Control-C to copy, and then I'm going to, I hope I got 4 lines of code, right? Because I want to copy and paste that delay as well. So I'm going to get the command to red, the command to green, the command to blue, and the delay. I'm going to get those. I copied them, and now I am going to paste them. Let me try that again. So I'm going to get all 4 lines of code, Control-C, put my cursor here, Control-V, and okay, there it is. So now this turned red on and left it on for delay S. Now I want to turn everything off. So now I will just say low like that. Okay, so now I've got what? The red blink. Now what do I want? I want the green blink. So what would be the easiest way to do that? Take all of this and copy it, and then come here. I'm going to skip one line, and now this is the green blink. So I'm going to take red this time. It's going to be low. Whose turn is it? It's Mr. Greenpin's turn to be high. Okay, and he's going to be high for delay S, and then he's going to be low for delay S. And now what do? We need to blink Miss Blue. Okay, and so red, you had your turn. You go back low now, and now blue pin, it's your time to shine. It's your time to shine. Okay, and so now what do I have? I have a red blink, I've got a green blink, and I've got a blue blink, and now I just need that longer delay, the delay, and then this is delay long. So you can kind of tell a space between the blink sequence, if that makes sense. Okay, so now this closes my while loop, this closes my void loop. I ask the user for input, and then I am going to run this thing. So let's go. Okay. Denied. What is this nonsense? Well, seriously, who did we forget? Mr. Semicolon. Okay, there we go. We got Mr. Semicolon in there. So now let's come up and let's run this thing. I hate those ugly little orange complaints. Looking good, looking good. It's downloading, and boom. Okay, now I've got to turn on my serial monitor. Now this is why I hate the new Arduino, the new IDE 2. It like really gets confused the first time you run the program, and it sent that command to the serial monitor before we turn the serial monitor on, so the serial monitor didn't get it. So I'm going to click this little white button to just rerun the program that's already in the Arduino. I click it. How many blinks do you desire? I desire 3 blinks. Okay, 3 blinks. Now I need all eyes on the LED. Now here we go. I'm going to press enter. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Got my 3 blinks. I got my 3 blinks. Did you see that? It asked me how many blinks did I want, and I said 3, and I got. It's still blinking. It's still blinking. Somebody tell me why it's still blinking. Somebody tell me what it's still blinking. It's not working. You know, you're going to say it's not working. Yeah, it is. What is it doing? It's doing exactly what we told it to do. And what did we tell it to do? We said we are going to keep blinking as long as I is less than or equal to none blink. But we said we only wanted to blink 3 times. What's going on here? Well, let's see if we can figure out what's going on. What if I just came in here and I said, well, let's just see serial.print. What do I want to print? I want to print I. What's going on with I? Right? I should go 1, 2, 3, and then it should fall out of there. So let's print that there, and let's make it a print ln like that. Okay. Okay, how many blinks do you desire? I am going to say 3. Now this time, you're not going to be looking at the LED. We want to see what that I is doing that we printed out. So I'm going to say 3. Okay. 1, 1, 1, 1. In the for loop itself increments the index for you. But in the while loop, who has to increment the index? You do. And what did we not do? We didn't increment it. We just came here and said as long as I is less than none blink. Well, we don't change I, and so I is always going to be less than none blink. What do we need to do down here at the very end? We need to increment our index or our counter. So what was I is going to become I plus 1. Now let's run it, okay? Okay, how many do I want? I'm going to say 3, right? I'm going to say 3, and it is going to go 1, and then it is going to go 2, and then it is going to go 3. Boom, we got that thing. Got it. Boom. Okay, now we can come in and we can take that print statement out. We can take that print statement out. Right here, we can take that print statement out. And now we're going to run it again. This time you're going to be watching the LED, okay? And how many times do I want to blink? I'm going to say 5, and I want you to watch the LED this time, okay? So I'm going to click enter. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, boom, and it stopped. It stopped. Success. Yes, we made it blink 5 times. Okay, now I have to ask, is everyone happy? Typically, most of you guys will be happy. But here is what the problem is, and this is the fundamental failure of almost all programmers that I know, and that is they don't fully test out their code. They sort of tested it and it looked like it worked, but what is the problem? They didn't really shake it very hard. They ran it one time and it worked, but they didn't shake it to try to break it. Okay, that's what you got to do with your code. You got to shake it till you break it, and then you got to figure out why it broke. So I'm going to come up here and let's try it again. Instead of 5, what if I said 4? I'm going to put in a different number. I'm going to say 4, and now I'm going to click enter, and it didn't blink. Okay, somebody tell me, why did it like the number 5, but it didn't like the number 4? So when I asked for 5 blinks, I got it. But then it didn't work for 4. Somebody tell me. If you're in the live stream, put a comment. If you're already watching it later, leave a comment down below. So we knew it liked 5, but it didn't like the number 4. Why did it not like the number 4? Well, let's see. Maybe it just likes odd numbers. So let's try 3. Okay. Didn't like 3 either. Well, how about 2? How about 6? How about 7? Tell me why this code only works for the number 5. Tell me why this code only works for the number 5. So let's try that again. 5. Okay, 5. Now it doesn't even work for 5. Okay, well, something's wrong. It's not working. What is it doing? It's doing exactly what we told it to. It's doing exactly what we told it to. So let's go in and let's put that print statement in again. Okay, let's figure out what's going on. So right now it's not even going into the while loop at all. So what am I going to do? I think I better come in, and since it's not even going into the while loop, I'm going to put my serial.println out here. I'm going to print I. What is going on with I that the first time through it goes into the while loop, and then the next time through it doesn't go into the while loop? So let's see if we can figure out what is going on. We will click like this. Okay, so now it's asking me for a number. Let's say 4, and then it is going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, that's 2, and then that's 3, and then that's 4. It blinked 4 times, okay? It blinked 4 times. Now this is really strange. It printed out 1, okay? And did I put that in the right place? Okay, let me start this again. Let me clear this out and let's see if we can figure out what's going on. Okay. How many blinks do you desire? So I'm going to say 3. Okay. And then it's going to come down and it should print out what I is right here. It should print out what I is right here. So I'm going to say enter. Okay. And then 1. Okay. Now it asks me again, and I'm going to say 3 again. The first time through, it said I was 1. And then the next time through, it started out with I 4. Well, why was I 1? I was my counter, and I set my counter to 1. And so when I got down here and went through this the first time, I was 1 as expected. Okay, but what happened? As I'm going through the while loop, I becomes 2, 3, 4, and then it drops out, and then it goes back to the top. It gets my new number. But who's sitting there at 4? I is. So what did we forget to do? We counted I up, but we forgot what? We got to reset it, right? We got to reset it. So right here, after I go through the while loop, I need to set I need to set my loop counter to 1 again. Okay, so now let's run it this time. Okay, let's run it this time. Okay, how many blinks do I want? 3, and be watching the LED. And let's see. That's 1, 2, 3. Okay, now it asks me again. I want 7 this time. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so what did we learn today? What did we learn today with while loops? What's very, very important with while loops, you have to make sure that you increment your index, that you increment your counter. And just as important as that, you have to make sure that after you've gone through the while loop and then you're coming back for the next time through, you have to reinitialize your counter. So you have to initialize it and you have to increment it. And if you forget either one of those, it's not going to work. Now, you can imagine that I made those mistakes on purpose because there's a couple of things that I wanted you to learn. Yeah, I wanted you to learn about while loops, but what I really wanted you to learn about is that you have to check your code more than just running the program one time. You've got to check it with odd numbers, you got to check it with even numbers, you got to check it with big numbers, you got to check it with small numbers, you got to check it in all of these different ways and just really shake that program as hard as you can. Because one of the things that as I've interacted with coders and programmers, the worst problem that they have is they don't fully check their code. They get it to work one time and then they pass it on to the next guy. And then when it doesn't work, you know what they do? They blame the user. Now, I'm not trying to be hard on programmers, but I'm saying that as we are going to develop code, we have to do better than that. We need to be the ones that find the errors, because when our programs get really, really big and we don't fully test every single part of it under every single condition, it could be that the first time those little snippets of code that are deeply inside of a 10,000 line program ever get executed is when the 747 is at 32,743 feet altitude and its nose is tipped up by 10 degrees. And then under those conditions, if it banks left by 1/2 of a degree, that's when you get into that while loop that you didn't increment your index and the airplane crashes. And, you know, I'm only slightly exaggerating here is that when programs get complicated, there can be certain conditions that would be very unlikely for you to end up in. But when you end up in those, if you haven't tested them, then you can have disaster. So as good engineers, you see, I'm not a coder, I'm an engineer. And I'm not trying to get you to think like a coder, I'm trying to get you to think like an engineer. And as an engineer, the most important thing that we're going to do is really, really, really test out our code, really shake it up, really make sure it works. And that's why when I taught students in the classroom in real life, I would always, I would just sit there, and these were poor little freshmen, and, they're in there learning their first codes. And no matter what, my goal when I graded their little project was to try to break it. And so they're sitting there and they're typing in red, green, blue, and then I would deliberately misspell red, and then I would give them a bad grade. Now, I would do that just to get their attention. Of course, when they fixed it, I would pop the grade up. And so I didn't deliberately try to ruin their lives, and they would all end up with good grades. But I was just trying to emphasize to them that I was going to try to break their code. And so they would be sitting there and they would try to think of every possible thing that I might do. And then when they had thought of everything, then I would always try to think of one thing that they hadn't thought of. And so I was trying to instill in them the habit of really, really debugging and testing and putting that code through the paces before you gave it to the next person. So that's one of the important things I was trying to teach you today. Also with while loops, really while loops and for loops, anything that you can do with a for loop, you can do with a while loop. And I kind of prefer the while loops a little better than the for loops. And I'll tell you why in a minute, but it's just the downside of a while loop. You have to make sure that you initialize your counter, and you have to make sure that you increment your counter. And that's a little bit more taken care of for you with the for loop. And in the while loop, you have to be managing that. But if all I do is while loops, I get really, really good at it. Now, why do I like while loops better than for loops? Well, with a for loop, you can say something like, if you want to blink 5 times, you can say for I equal 1, and then keep going as long as I is less than or equal to none blink, and then I equal I plus 1, or I is equal to I minus 1, or I is equal to 2 times I. You see, you're kind of forced to manage it right there inside of those parentheses where you're setting up the for loop. Okay, and so that's the nice thing about the for loop. But the nice thing about the while loop, you don't have to, when you go into it, know the exact condition. So let's say that I want to open the window or close the window, and I have a while loop. And the first thing I do is I measure the temperature, and then I say, while the temperature is greater than 100 degrees, leave the window open. Okay, so you see, I can do things like, while the temperature is more than 100, turn the LED on. So you see, I can do things, and that might loop through a million times, or it might loop through one time, but I can set my while loop up based on something that is changing, to where the for loop is more like count 1 to 10. Now, if I were doing things like averaging grades or inputting data, or if I was doing just strictly coding or software types of things, I would tend to use for loops. But anytime I'm going to be using embedded systems, if I'm going to be using embedded systems where I'm controlling a circuit or a servo, or doing something, that sensors and actuators, then in that case, I really like the while loop a little bit better. Okay, guys, I hope you are having as much fun taking this class as I am making them. And as always, I want to give a big shout out to you guys who are helping me out over at Patreon. It is your encouragement and your support that keeps this great content coming. Really appreciate you guys. You can also help me by giving me a thumbs up or leaving a comment down below. If you have not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel. When you do, ring that bell so you'll get notifications when future lessons drop. And most importantly, share this video with other people, because the world needs more people thinking like an engineer and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.